remember yesterday when I couldn't make up my mind about Emiliano Teodo being a starter or a closer? Yeah, I think my mind's made up. He needs to close, and not just eventually. Right now.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, on today's show, we're talking about Tyler Mahle, why his range of outcomes is so varied this year and so important. We're also talking about Emiliano Teodo. Should he be in the Rangers' pen, not just eventually, but right freaking now? And we're going to talk about Josh Jung stepping up as a leader, a baby gift that kind of says basically everything you need to know about what the Rangers want to do with their offense this year and getting back to that 2023 championship form. I talked a lot about Teodo on yesterday's show. We'll talk more about him in the second segment, but I want to touch on Tyler Mahle and his outing, his, I believe, second start of the spring, the longest outing of the spring for him. 4 innings pitched, 3 strikeouts, 2 walks, 1 run, which was earned, a couple of hits allowed, and 57 pitches, not about half of those for strikes. He looked fine. Pretty good at times, a little bit hittable at times, but he looked a little bit like the Tyler Mahle that we're expecting. Now, Mahle is not a guy who we've seen pitch a whole lot for the Rangers. I thought that he would pitch more than 3 starts last year for Texas, but that was all the Rangers got. They were buying low on him after the 2023 season for 2024 and 2025. They spent $22 million to go get him, $11 million a year, a whole lot less last year because he was coming back from Tommy John surgery. The thought was that he'd be ready sometime in July. That ended up being closer to August. Only made 3 starts and then went back on the IL with some shoulder inflammation. And, he didn't really look all that great in his 3 starts. Sure, he had some moments, but 12 and 2/3 innings and 3 outings in a basically 5-ish ERA was not exactly what the Rangers were hoping for from him. I mean, the big 3 starters that were going to be injured for most of the year, the Rangers banked a whole lot on them last year. The rest of the rotation, I think, more than did their jobs. I think that the Rangers were definitely let down last year by their offense more than their starting pitching. Eovaldi pitched 170 innings. That was about what you would ask of him. Jon Gray was fine. Not great, but fine enough in his 100-ish innings of work. Max Scherzer only pitched 40 innings. They didn't get much out of him. Jacob deGrom didn't come back until August, which is about, I think September actually was when he made his first start. He only made 3 starts as well. That was about what the Rangers were expecting of him. They were hoping to be in more of an advantageous position to actually fight for the playoffs once deGrom came back, and if they were, maybe deGrom would have come back and made those final rehab starts at the big league level, but Mahle, they just didn't get that much out of, and Mahle just haven't pitched that much in the last couple of years. I mean, he had 5 starts in 2023 with Minnesota. He had 23 starts in 2022, but that's 8 starts the last couple of years combined. I mean, he's thrown under 50 innings, I believe under 40 innings, actually, the last couple years combined. I mean, he missed a decent chunk of time with Minnesota at the end of 2022, and then he missed basically all of 2023. He did pitch in 5 games, so about the same amount as Jacob deGrom did in 2023. But still, we haven't seen much of this guy these last couple of years. I mean, he looked great in those first 5 starts for Minnesota in 2023 before he underwent Tommy John surgery. And then coming back, he didn't quite have it. And the thing about a guy like Mahle, he is never a big velocity guy. I mean, his velocity needs to tick up a little bit more than where it was last year. Last year was averaging in the 91.5-ish mile an hour range, 91.4 if you want to be specific. It was 92.5 miles an hour the year before, but when he's at his best, it's around 93, 94. So not blowing the doors off of anybody. He's not up there touching triple digits like my boy Teodo, who we'll talk about in a little bit, but he needs just a little bit more juice than he had in 2024. Now, he came out of the gates and it didn't look like a whole lot of velocity in the first inning. He talked about it afterwards. He was in the 89, 90 mile an hour range there. And he's like, I don't know what it is about the first inning, but that's just kind of how I am. I need, a couple of pitches to go out there and ramp things up. Then he ramped things up to the 91, 92, 93 mile an hour range. That's more what the Rangers are looking for. But he's a guy who is very much command first. It is all about the quality of strikes with him. And if you look at this pitch chart, if you're watching on YouTube, you can kind of see it right there. How the pitches are right there on the edges of the zone. Not, if he's missing, it's not by much, and it's not usually in places where he can get hurt that badly. I mean, that's kind of the deal with Mahle. And the thing about coming back from Tommy John surgery is, usually the control command is the last thing to come back. Usually that comes back, so you miss 12 to 14 months or so before you're actually back on a big league mound. And then usually that next season, the season after that, is when the command starts to come back. So you see this, he's living on the peripheries. Not that many pitches that are wild and waste pitches. He's throwing purposeful quality strikes, but that's kind of about the Mahle that the Rangers are hoping for and expecting. But you look at some of these projections for him, the different projection systems, they're all over the map. I mean, they don't know what to do with Tyler Mahle because he hasn't pitched more than 150 innings except once in his entire career. And he's been in the big leagues since 2017. That's a long time of not pitching all that many games. Now, granted, one of those years was the COVID-shortened 2020 season. He pitched in 10 games there, 9 starts, 47 and 2/3 innings. That's basically a full season of work in that 60-game season. Then in 2021, he pitched 180 innings there, 33 starts. So not a guy who goes particularly deep into games. And even when he missed some time in 2021, 2022, he did pitch in 23 games. So again, he's not a guy who's going to throw you 6-7 inning starts all that often. But when he does go out there, if he is going out there every 5th day, he can get you quality outings. And, in the past, he's had a lot of strikeout success. I mean, even 2023, he was averaging just around 10 strikeouts per 9 in his best season in terms of the Ks per 9. That was 2020, 11.3. Then he had 10.5 in that career season in 2021 when he pitched 180 innings, had a sub-4 ERA while pitching in Cincinnati, which is a very, very hitter-friendly ballpark. So all of that, it makes you think, okay, this guy can do pretty well. But you look at the projection systems of what they're expecting for him. I think Baseball References, they don't have any idea what to do with him. They even put a reliability on their predictions. They projected him for 69 innings. Nice. Also very not nice. They project him for a save. They do that with every starting pitcher. I don't really particularly know why Baseball Reference always predicts that guys who are going to live in the starting rotation are each going to have like 1 to 3 saves. Like, just go look at those projections on Baseball Reference or a lot of these starting pitchers. You're like, what? Why are you doing that? Stop doing that. But they give their reliability a 42% reliability because they're like, I don't know. I have no idea how much this guy's going to pitch. And you look at FanGraphs, and they've got a whole bunch of different projection systems that, in terms of his innings ratings, of how many innings they think he's going to get, their Steamer projects him for 148 innings, and then the lowest projection, Zips, has him at 98 innings. They're like, I have no idea what to make of this guy. From 19 starts to 26 starts, I mean, they're just not quite sure what to make of him, and I don't blame them because I'm not really sure what to make of him either. I think the range of outcomes for Mahle, I think at his best, he's a number 3, a guy who you can trust in a playoff game to start. Now, you wouldn't want to start him in game 1, or ideally game 2 of a series, more of a game 3, game 4 kind of a starter, but he is a guy who you can trust to go out there and give you 5 quality innings, or maybe 4 if you're not quite banking on him as much in a playoff game. I mean, there's 3 types of starting pitchers in the majors. There's aces, who I define as anybody who you feel good about throwing game 1 of a playoff series. That's an ace in my book. That's my definition. Feels pretty simple for me. There's number 2, playoff starters. Guys who are, middle of the rotation, who you can trust to go out there and get you through the order a couple of times in a playoff game, and they'll be fine. It's not ideal, but you trust them to do that. And then the third type of starters, there's depth starters. Guys who are your number 4, number 5, who are going to, go out there, make 20 to 25, maybe 30 starts if you need them to. They'll get you 120 to 180 innings. Probably going to be, 5 to 10% worse than league average with the ERA, but they'll go out there every fifth day and they'll mop up some innings for you. They'll give you a chance to stay in games. They're not going to just go out there and get lit up. And you need all types of those starters. You need, 1 to 2 aces, at least one if you want to be a competitive team. You need, the number 4 in your rotation probably needs to be at least a playoff starter, which I think Mahle slots in at about the Rangers 4, maybe they're 5, depending on who you're higher on between him and John Gray. And you need a couple of guys, at least 2 to 3 guys of those depth starters, because those guys get hurt. Everybody, every pitcher gets hurt. And so with Mahle, I think the Rangers are banking on him getting 25 to 30 starts. They're banking on him being at least league average in terms of his ERA, in terms of going out there every fifth day or fifth game and giving you at least 5-6 quality innings. And I think they're banking on him being maybe even a little better than, maybe hoping a whole lot better than we've seen with him these first couple of starts in Texas last year while rehabbing. And who knows what they can get out of Tyler Mahle. I am extremely curious about, I have about like what he's actually going to do this year in terms of the range of outcomes. I think if he's great, I think that's going to make a huge impact on the Rangers. And if he's bad, I think they can survive it, but it's just someone who I think his range of outcomes will really kind of determine the floor of the Rangers. If his floor is, guy who's not good enough to start every fifth day, guy who's getting lit up, guy who isn't healthy and isn't durable, I think that could really damage the Rangers' floor for their season this year. Coming up, we're talking about Emiliano Teodo, a guy who does not average 91 miles an hour with the fastball, blowing guys away in his second save of the spring, and why I think he shouldn't just be in the bullpen. He should be the Rangers' closer right now. All that and more right after this. Shout out to the Everydayers making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow, we'll be back and talk about these split squad games against the Dodgers and the Padres. Probably talk a little bit about Corey Seager if he does anything special. Probably talk a little bit about Cody Bradford and what his role might be on this Texas Rangers team and why I'm so excited about Cody Bradford. Now, we're talking about guys who are not soft tossers, not Cody Bradford, no shade to Cody Bradford, not Tyler Mahle, no shade to Tyler Mahle. I don't think either of those guys are going to be the Rangers closers this year or maybe ever. But the guy who is probably going to eventually be the Rangers closer, and I think it should start right now, that's Emiliano Teodo. Now, why have I changed my tune so much from one day to the other? It did one spring trading outing where Emiliano Teodo threw a perfect inning, striking out the side against not even everyday big leaguers for the Reds, who are a middle-of-the-road Major League Baseball team. No, that wasn't it. I mean, it definitely helped, for sure. I mean, Emiliano Teodo looked absolutely phenomenal in that game. This was his, I believe, fourth outing of the spring so far. His second save. His other save, I believe he had a couple of strikeouts. He had his third, fourth, and fifth strikeouts in a perfect inning of work against the Cincinnati Reds. And it wasn't just perfect. It was almost more than perfect. Not quite immaculate. Let's look at these pitches right here. This is a guy who throws 100 miles an hour. And I talked a lot about it at length on yesterday's show of why just because guy throws 100 miles an hour doesn't mean, closer. That's not how that should work. But with Emiliano Teodo, the deliberation is, does he have that third pitch? Does he pose more value? Can he actually stick as a starter? And I saw some of his best starts last year, and even in the ones where his stuff was really, really good, it's not quite there, I don't think. You want to give him that opportunity to stick as a starter, but I think the Rangers, not necessarily need, but, desire for an elite closer with this kind of stuff. I mean, the outing yesterday, you look at these pitches, you look at how good they were. Look at those slurves. StatCast calls them slurves. He calls them sliders. He calls them slurves. Whatever that breaking ball is, it was absolutely untouchable yesterday. He threw 6 of those slurves. He got 4 swings. Every single one was a swing and a miss. He was getting swings and misses in the zone with that slurve. Look at that pitch right there. Sorry, my hand can't go in front of it, but you see what I'm looking at. Look at the pitch in the bottom corner of the zone. I mean, he is dotting that thing up. He is living on the edges with that breaking ball, getting swings and misses in the zone with the breaking ball. Actually, that was one of the best pitches, if not the best pitch on the entire farm last year. Now, the only reason I'm not saying for sure's the best pitch, and I don't use for sure's lightly. The only reason I'm not saying that is because Kumar Rocker is there, and he has that rock ball, and that's one of the best pitches on the planet. But Teodo's slurve, slider, curve, whatever the heck you want to call it, he calls it a slurve. I call it a slurve. It doesn't really matter all that much unless you want to be just a little bit more of a ball knower than the guy next to you. It's an incredibly good pitch. It is deadly. And it's probably better than the fastball. But the fastball with that sinker, with that elite velocity, that's something the Rangers pen doesn't have. It not just that this year's pen doesn't have. It's something the Rangers pen hasn't had in a long time. I mean, I went back and looked and tried to find, okay, when was the last guy the Rangers had that was not only just not even just homegrown, just a guy in their pen in general that's chucking it up there, living in the upper 90s. And the guys who can even touch 100 miles an hour. There's not all that many guys the Rangers have had that had that elite velocity in any of the pens since basically Neftali Feliz. That's what we're talking about here. I mean, here are the guys that I have found. This is probably an incomplete list, but this is what I could find and what I remember in my brain of guys who the Rangers have had that have even touched 100 miles an hour since 2010, which has been this window of contention, and even the last window of contention, I should say. There's Aroldis Chapman, who has thrown the hardest pitch that any Ranger has ever thrown in the StatCast era. You might remember it. It was in the ALCS. It was not a strike. It was 103.7 miles an hour, and it hit Chas McCormick in the leg. And I mean, that is the dead leg of all dead legs. And it was in Game 7 when the Rangers were up by, I believe, 8 runs at that point. And of course, it was in the 8th inning. It was just hilarious sequence of events. But the other guys who have touched 100 miles an hour since then, there's Alex Spies, who did it a couple times. He did not play a hugely meaningful role. I believe he pitched in 3, maybe 5 games with the Rangers in 2023. Nick Snyder, I believe, touched 100 miles an hour at least a couple times. I know he did routinely in the minor leagues. He was up for a couple of seasons. I believe he pitched fewer than 50 innings combined in his time with Texas. There is Emmanuel Clase, who was briefly in the big leagues with the Rangers before that ill-fated trade for Corey Kluber. Again, at the time, would do it over and over again, but it didn't work out. C.D. Pelham, the left-hander, I believe he touched 100 miles an hour in the big leagues. I know he did routinely in AA and AAA. Not sure if he quite got there in the bigs. Connor Sadzek, who had the flattest 100-mile-an-hour fastball I have ever seen. He touched 100 miles an hour. And then Neftali Feliz. I think that's it. I don't think I'm missing anybody. I'm pretty sure that's most everybody. Jake Diekman never got to 100 miles an hour. I don't believe Keone Kela ever got to 100 miles an hour. He was close. He was close for sure. Matt Bush, I'm pretty sure, did not get to 100 miles an hour. He lived in those upper 90s, around 95, 97, 98, 99. I don't think that he ever hit triple digits. And, well, Jacob deGrom has hit triple digits, but he's not a closer. Stop asking about him being a closer. You don't pay $40 million to a closer. That's not how this works. But this is someone with a special arsenal. This is someone with that mentality of, I don't care where I'm going. I want to get big league hitters out right now. And the danger with Teodo, if they want to stick with him as a starter, is that you put him up to AAA this year. The changeup doesn't make meaningful progress forward. He doesn't throw more strikes. I mean, he was struggling with the walks against AA, and hitters at a higher level have an even better knowledge of the strike zone. They are even less likely to chase out of the zone as a starter. And he just kind of stalls there. And that's a little bit what happened with Neftali Feliz. I mean, he was great in Double-A, he was also sitting upper 90s, touching 100 regularly as a starter in Double-A. I mean, in Frisco, he had quite a bit of success. I mean, 10 starts, 45 innings, 47 strikeouts, but 4.6 walks per nine. That was about the level that Teodo was at, except Teodo had a 198, I believe, ERA in 20 starts across the whole season. That was 10 starts for Feliz, and he had a 2.98 ERA. And then eventually he made it up to Oklahoma City, and he also didn't struggle as much with the walks, but didn't have as many strikeouts in 2009 before the Rangers called him up in 2009, where he had a pretty decent first couple outings. I mean, 20 outings, 31 innings, and a 1.74 ERA. Then in 2010, steps into the closer's role, wins Rookie of the Year, is an all-star, and is absolutely phenomenal in that closer's role in 2010 and 2011. Goes back to starting in 2012. We all know how that went. He is in big league camp with the Seattle Mariners right now. 3 games, 3 innings, 5 hits, 3 earned runs. No walks, no strikeouts. He hasn't pitched in the big league since 2021, I believe, with the Dodgers. It's been a minute since he's been in the big leagues. I wish him all the luck in the world for him breaking camp with the Mariners and getting one more shot at big leagues. He's 37 years old. It has been a long time since the young fireballer Neftali Feliz was playing a role in the Rangers' pen. And the Rangers haven't had a closer like that with that kind of stuff since Neftali Feliz. And Emiliano Teodo could definitely be that, and he could be that right now. There's a lot of other really good pitchers that are going to be in this bullpen. I think Luke Jackson's going to have a really good year. I'm really excited for what Jacob Webb is going to do. I think Joe Barler's got an outside shot of, maybe not cracking the Rangers big league roster, but at least making it back to the bigs. I didn't expect much, but with his velocity back, he looks better. I think there's a lot of other guys, Hobie Milner, that looks pretty good. Sean Armstrong, I think, should be, pretty solid. I think Dane Dunning is going to be a really good long man, and Chris Martin, I think, is going to be good, but none of them have that A-plus nasty, disgusting stuff like Emiliano Teodo, and that's why I think he shouldn't just be in the Rangers' pen. He should be the guy in the pen. And that eventually should start right now with Emiliano Teodo closing games on opening day. Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit more about Josh Jung, his leadership role, and why a baby gift to a new teammate says everything about this team. A great feature written by Evan Grant. We'll talk about all that and more right after this. This show is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios are one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1-ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better-for-you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no-shells variety. It's the perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost, they are my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Satisfying crack of opening those shell, it's like snack meditation. Whether you're running between meetings or dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. So get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein bunch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Shout out to the Everydayers making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. We'll be back on Monday talking about this weekend's games, talking about a Jacob deGrom debut. It's happening either Friday or Saturday. Same with Wyatt Langford. His debut will be either Friday or Saturday. It'll be Friday. Unless it's raining, then it will be on Saturday. That goes for both of those guys. But one last point I wanted to make on Emiliano Teodo before I move on to Josh Jung, his leadership, and a baby blanket, is just the actual numbers on the velocity for Emiliano Teodo. In yesterday's game, he averaged 98.6 miles an hour on his sinker. The amount of sinkers that people threw in Major League Baseball last year that averaged faster than 98.6 miles an hour, there were only 6 of them. At 6, we have Robert Suarez, who was just barely faster at 98.7. Then we had Aroldis Chapman, 99.8. Hunter Green, 100 miles an hour. Manuel Clase, 100 miles an hour. Justin Martinez, a reliever for the Arizona Diamondbacks, at 100.2 miles an hour. And then Mason Miller at 102.1 miles per hour. So that gives you the context of how freaking fast that fastball is. Now, we're going to talk about some hitters, specifically the Rangers hitters, and Josh Jung stepping into a leadership role. Now, this is something I've talked about a little bit before, about loving Josh Jung and his vocalness. He has been a big leaguer for now, I believe this will be his 4th season, spending any time in the big leagues, his 3rd season. Yes, 3rd season as an everyday big leaguer. Was an everyday big leaguer in 2023. He was an all-star. He was a World Series champion. He was incredible. Last year was pretty good for those first 4 games until freaking Phil Maton ruined his season. And now he is officially bridging that gap between being a youngster and being a veteran. He is a little bit older for a guy who still counts as a young player, but he is stepping into a little bit more of that vocal leader role, which the Rangers haven't had. I think it's going to be him and Jock Peterson being those vocal leaders, because Peterson is very much a veteran, but he is also new in the Rangers clubhouse. But Josh Jung has been there for a while. And this was some news that I found out through a great story in the Dallas Morning News written by Evan Grant. You should go check out that article. You should also go subscribe to the Dallas Morning News. They do a lot of great work there. But this was a gift that the Texas Rangers gave to Jake Burger, and they talked about, the importance of this gift. Now, Jake Burger is a new Texas Ranger. He'll be the Rangers' everyday first baseman, and he just had a baby girl, Penelope, who was born with Down syndrome, and last week had open heart surgery. This is something that is common for babies who are born with Down's syndrome. And when Jake Burger hit his first home run of the spring, his first home run in a Texas Rangers uniform, he was wearing his daughter's hospital bracelet. Just one of the sweetest things that I've seen in a long time. And the Rangers want to make him feel like family. And Josh Jung kind of led the charge on this. Donnie Ecker, the Rangers offensive coordinator, also led the charge on this. They got little Penelope a baby blanket signed by everybody on the team. Just a meaningful gift. And Josh Jung talked about wanting this team to feel like a family and feel like that family environment of just trusting each other, of loving each other, of creating that supportive culture. And that's something the Rangers very much had as an offensive identity in 2023. And I think this team can be even better than they were in 2023. I think last year, because they had so many guys, missing some time, so many guys having down years, it felt like everybody was putting pressure on themselves to be the one who single-handedly fixed the offense last year. I think that's part of what led to Adolis Garcia having such a down year. I think that might be part of why Marcus Semien had a bit of a down year as well. And some of these other guys, it felt like they were trying to do it all, with Josh Jung down with injury, with Jonah Heim having a really, really down year. I think he was also putting a lot of pressure on himself to just be that guy. But one of the things that not only Josh Jung but Donnie Ecker talked about is, these guys trusting each other. And I think it sounds super cliche. It really does. But the thing that made this team so unstoppable offensively in 2023 was not just that they had Corey Seager operating on an unprecedented level. I mean, that was literally the best year of Corey Seager's career. He was incredible. But it was 1 through 9. They each trusted whoever was behind them and in front of them and behind the other guy. They trusted everybody else in the lineup to do the right thing. So it led to them having better plate discipline. It led to them making better swing decisions. It led to them, trusting the guy behind them that if they weren't seeing anything to hit, they'd take their walks. They'd foul off pitches. If they couldn't get the guy home and drive him in with 1 out, they trusted the guy behind them could drive him in with 2 outs. And it led to them not forcing at-bats as much. And last year, it felt like we saw a whole lot of that, of just having an incredibly deep and talented lineup that literally everybody in this lineup can hurt you. And the way the Rangers lineup is set up this year, that is exactly how they are. It's going to be very similar to 2023 in that there's not a bad bat in this lineup. I mean, the guys who are projected to hit 8th and 9th, according to Fangraphs, this opening day lineup, you have Jake Burger, a guy who routinely hits 30 home runs, has around a 750, 760 career OPS. If that's the guy in your 8 hole, that's incredible. And the guy in the Rangers 9 hole is Jonah Heim, who was an all-star catcher in 2023. Not that far removed. That is an incredibly deep lineup. You look all the way down. I mean, you look at the middle third of this order. I mean, you have Jock Peterson batting cleanup. You have Adolis Garcia, who, got MVP votes in 2023 and won ALCS MVP and had 39 home runs. He's been a multi-time All-Star. He could be an All-Star again this year. You have him batting 5th. You have Josh Jung, who is a former All-Star, batting 6th. And Evan Carter, the little savior, batting 7th. I mean, this is an incredibly deep lineup, and them having that identity of handing the baton off to the next guy, that is why they were so incredibly good in the early parts of 2023 and especially in the postseason. I think we especially saw that a lot in the ALDS. I mean, that's where I think we saw that the most, especially in Corey Seager. I mean, Corey Seager had a record number of walks in that ALDS because the Baltimore Orioles saw the Rangers lineup and they said, okay, there's the guy who can beat us, Corey Seager. We're not going to let him beat us. We're going to walk him, basically pitch around him basically every single time. And I think he could have literally set the record for most walks in an ALDS or just a divisional series if he hadn't, expanded the zone a little bit. I think it was game 2 or game 3, but the Orioles just wanted no part of him. And the rest of the Rangers order said, okay, you don't want him, you get me. And it was just guy after guy after guy stepping up. I mean, Mitch Garver with that big grand slam in that series. Adolis Garcia with that big home run in Game 3 of that series. Also Nathaniel Lowe having a big home run in Game 3 of that series. Jonah Heim having a couple of big hits. Josh Jung having a couple of big hits. Evan Carter having some big hits. I mean, literally all the way up and down the lineup of having that identity of not just Corey Seager is going to beat you, not just Wyatt Langford is going to beat you, not just Jock Peterson or Adolis Garcia or Marcus Semien. All of us can beat you. All of us can take you deep. All of us can work a count and crush you. And if somebody's having a bad day, the guy behind them can get you just as easily. This is not a team that is just a one-trick pony offensively. There's not just one guy who can crush you. There's not just, I guess the Dodgers are not a good example. It's not like the Yankees offense last year, where it was Aaron Judge and, that guy Juan Soto that are crushing it, and everybody else in the lineup is, not too terrifying. The Rangers offense, well, Corey Seager, I think, is just about as good a hitter as anybody that we've ever seen. I think Wyatt Langford could eventually get there, and I think Jock Peterson and Adolis Garcia and Marcus Semien are definitely, star-level bats. But having that depth of literally 1 through 9, there is not a single easy out. There is not a single batter who is not all-star caliber in this lineup. That is what's going to make this team even better offensively than 2023 and might make this one of the best offensive Texas Rangers teams we have ever seen. And hopefully they're going to do it with a lot more baby gifts, a lot more, emotional, knitting together of the team with some vocal leadership from Josh Jung. I'm really excited to see what Josh Jung is going to bring, not only on the field, but off the field as well, stepping into that vocal leader role that I think he has always been destined to have. And now he's finally got the skins on the wall to step up and do it. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.